What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to the one, the only Queen of Hearts. What's going on, Queen?
I'm doing good, and yourself?
Doing great, doing great. Glad to have you on, and a big shout out to the dudes at Ringside Podcast for making this whole thing happen. Because if I hadn't seen you on their podcast, I wouldn't be like, "Hey, that person looks cool."
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all the opportunities that I can have.
Absolutely. And speaking of opportunities, you've got a match this weekend, don't
Yes,
you?
I do. Actually, I have two. I have one on Friday. Yeah, I have one Friday in Santa Maria, and then I have one. It's near. I forgot where it is exactly. It's something lake down south, like almost near San Diego, on the
Okay.
fort with the Micromania.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a fun promotion. Isn't like former WWE World Champion like Alberto Del Rio supposed to be on that one?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
is actually. Yeah, he's supposed to be part of the main event.
that's not a bad way to cut your teeth on the wrestling circuit. But I gotta ask, like, how did you get into, combat sports?
So I started doing combat sports when I was like 5 years old because I was actually getting picked on when I was a kid, and my parents wanted me to become like grow up, be confident and strong, and be able to stand up for myself. So they got me into the pit in Rio Grande, where like Chuck Liddell is and everything. Yeah, that was before he was like big. So like he was in there with everyone else. You got to see him, you got to meet him. This is where he made it. The running champ and all that stuff. So I have pictures of him with him. Like, yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, knowing
Wow.
people like that before they got
So
big.
yeah, so that's for those who don't know, that's Hack John Hackelman,
Yeah,
Antonio Banuelos is in there
yeah,
somewhere, right? Like,
yeah.
that's the pit. I mean, even Glover Teixeira was
Yeah,
was
yeah.
there.
Glover,
Yeah,
I don't know if he's still with them, but he's still fighting. I watch him every once in a while when he's fighting and stuff like that.
he just became the UFC light heavyweight champion,
Yeah, yeah.
the oldest one, in fact.
Yeah. And then, I did wrestling and Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and Krav Maga throughout the years and really enjoyed it.
Now, did you gravitate to one versus the other? Like, because
I
mixing it together is kind of strange, right? Standing up, like a Krav Maga or Muay Thai, getting in close versus a wrestling or jujitsu, where you're kind of taking people to the ground and finishing them off. So, did you have a preference one way or another?
Yeah, I really took to wrestling. Like I did freestyle mainly, and then I did folk style or collegiate in high school, and a little bit in middle school, and then I did a little bit of Greco here or there. But that was mainly the thing I competed in, and I really put a lot of time into. Even after like I got injured, like my junior year in high school, I was still getting, scholarships and opportunities to go wrestle in college. I just chose not to because I was like, I'm doing a psychology degree and it's going to be very hard and time consuming, and trying to travel across the country to go wrestle wasn't seemed like a lot of time invested.
Yeah, and that's the plight. And one of the reasons why I think, on the West Coast, wrestling, because you've got these big, Midwestern, Eastern, teams and clubs of wrestling, even in the, junior high school level, right? But it never really took it a hold here just because it's so taxing. I mean, you're training literally what 12 to 16 hours a day with little to no reward. It's not something that is, easily transferable to any other, application or endeavor.
Yeah, so I just wanted to focus on school. That's why I didn't do it. But I enjoy it. I try to volunteer my time because, I was a really good wrestler. I won multiple state championships. I placed in nationals. I did a lot with wrestling. I was pretty badass. I've had to say
Yeah,
do myself.
yeah.
Even in
Okay.
the boys, like I would win against boys, even in high school.
Well, I mean, and that's pretty cool, right? The fact that you can say you're a legitimate badass, right? Especially in, I guess, the auspice of your parents wanting you to get into combat sports for getting picked on and all that jazz. So it kind of worked, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It did. I definitely have a lot of confidence in myself just based on, my wrestling, my fighting, just being myself, which plays off a lot. People are like, "Oh, you don't think yourself as like pretty or whatever." I'm like, "No, because that's not where my confidence comes in. My confidence comes in because, in college I was, getting 3.9 GPA. Done all these sports and I was good at it and caught on really quickly. So that's where my confidence stems from. It drives people crazy sometimes, like other family members are like, you shouldn't be doing this, you can get hurt, you can get your face messed up. I'm like, I don't care. This is something I enjoy doing, like I like even in practice one time I like messed up and like got hit in the face and my tooth got knocked back. I was like, "Ooh, that's not good." And like after practice I pushed it back in place and then was wanted to go train the next day.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a bit of the badassery.
Yeah.
Um, Over on Twitch, they said, can you send a greeting to Carrie Capija? So, Carrie, what's going on? How are you? Right?
Yeah.
That's a crazy little duck emoji. But yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because that's sort of not the norm, right? Especially in California. Central to Southern California, everybody's more entertainment based and everything. We know somebody who knows somebody, and
Mhm.
it's funny because Central California along the coast, a lot of movie stars, actors, and I think Dennis Miller lives somewhere out there. There's still a even 2.5 hours away outside of LA or Hollywood, there's still a very entertainment esque, feel. San
Mhm.
Luis Obispo has a lot of filming that happens there almost on a day to day basis. So it's kind of crazy that you didn't gain your strength that way. It's all the rough and tumble, like literally, your nose against the grindstone of wrestling.
Yeah, actually, you'd be surprised. California has a big wrestling like community. Like it's crazy. Like when I was at nationals, like California team was the thing. Like everyone wanted their gear. Everyone, like was afraid of California, and I think we placed like I think we placed second in nationals for our whole team for the females. I don't know about the males; they might have placed or not. I don't know, but yeah, we're actually pretty big. Like I think it's because we have so much population
Right.
that we have like a lot of people come here and wrestle and that kind of stuff. You'd be surprised, honestly, like how
Yeah.
big wrestling is in California.
No, 1,000%. And I mean, it's one of the linchpins of, mixed martial arts, right?
Yeah.
You can teach a wrestler to box or submissions in jiu-jitsu or catch wrestling, but the base, theoretically, if you're envisioning the perfect mixed martial artist, usually the template that you use is wrestling.
Yeah, yeah. I know a lot of or fighters that got their beginnings in wrestling. I forgot what her real name is, but she goes by the Cookie Monster. I
Yeah,
think she
Carla Esparza.
I actually got to wrestle her.
Really?
Yeah, there was a seminar and I kind of made her flustered. Yeah, she didn't really like wrestling me that much because I'm a very aggressive, like I'm always putting the heat on people.
That's a nice little je ne sais quoi, a feather in the cap, so to speak, because Carla Esparza is a literal badass, right? She was the first Invicta strawweight champion, Invicta all female, promotion that a lot of the upper echelon of the UFC in terms of the female divisions came from Invicta, right? And you don't get to be the first twice, but Carla Esparza figured out a way because not only is she the inaugural Invicta strawweight champion, but She was on the Ultimate Fighter, the UFC's reality show, to crown their strawweight champion, and she wins the tournament, and she becomes the first divisional champion of two different promotions, Invicta and UFC.
Yeah, yeah.
And you got her flustered.
Yeah, I did. She wasn't able to take me down, so that was a huge moment for me because I was like, because like now I see her, and she's like, oh, she has like the most takedowns and all this,
Yeah.
and I'm like, but she couldn't take down a high schooler.
Wow. Yeah. But that's the thing. And that is absolutely, you are spitting facts because here's the thing. She does have in the UFC strawweight history the most takedowns of any other competitor. And I want to even say any female competitor, including the current double champion, Amanda the Lioness Nunes. She is the best wrestler to come to female MMA, and yeah, she couldn't take you down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which it's kind of crazy. So I mean, as you're advancing yourself and your career and knowledge of psychology, what you knew you wanted to do, right? At what point are you starting to kind of like maybe transition yourself away from the wrestling and competing and maybe figuring out something else?
Yeah, so I got injured my junior year in high school. So I was like kind of like a big moment for me. I tore my rotator cuff and it took like over a year to heal after surgery. So I really wasn't able to wrestle my senior year. And then I was going into college. I got some offers, I forgot which one. It was like for the military, they offered me a full scholarship, and for their like university, and a few other places contacted me. It was just I didn't feel like it was in my cards at the time. So I went to college because was planning to go for a psychology degree, which is very time consuming because there's a lot of papers, a lot of research. I had to do my own research, and I was very glad that I didn't because wrestling and all that stuff takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
You have to spend, 3 hours in the gym. That's not even wrestling practice, plus wrestling practice, and then probably gym afterwards. And it's very time consuming. And I want to do my best possible in college because that's what I'm there for. And then after I graduated college, I was looking at something to do. I was like, like it was a pandemic right afterwards because I graduated in December 2019. Yeah, yeah, like right before the pandemic, I graduated. Actually, was able to have a graduation. I was supposed to graduate a semester later. I graduated a semester early, and the pandemic happened. Everything was closed. I was like, oh well, there's no wrestling, there's no jiu-jitsu, there's no nothing. And my dad showed me this flyer, like, hey, like, look at this, it's pro wrestling. I was like, yeah, maybe. Like, I don't know. I was like, then I kind of sat on it for about a month, and I was like, you know what do I have to lose? If I don't like it, I just do something else. And if I do like it, then I've been here. I've been training for like over a year now. And
Wow. Which is funny because you were saying, there weren't any jiu-jitsu competition or anything like that. I mean, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, like the weird things that came out of not having, high-level jiu-jitsu competitors not able to compete. Did you see it? There was actually car jiu-jitsu tournaments. People were doing jiu-jitsu in their cars. And that was like they basically they're buckled in, right? And as soon as the horn sounds and the ref is on the outside because there's not enough room, right? Let's say a Nissan, what is it, Sentra, like a very not even a mid-size car, just like a little, like a Toyota Yaris, just like an egg of a car, right? And you would have to as soon as the horn sound, you have to unbuckle, right? And then you start doing that whole thing. It was just wild. And I even there were training videos of like people literally, crawling and maneuvering, right?
yeah.
Up and down like chairs, like the back of car chairs to condition themselves for car jiu-jitsu.
Oh my god, I never saw that, but Sounds kind of very interesting to go on.
I'm gonna send you links. That's because so just and it was funny because like I didn't even realize like a bunch of my friends had done it, and then, I mean same thing with MMA, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember being at a I want to say it was no, actually it was a jiu-jitsu competition, submission on the shore, all female jiu-jitsu competitor, competed tournament, cash money. I think it was like two to I want to say like $2,000 to $5,000 for the first place, whatever, and it's all female, and that was on the Queen Mary in Long Beach, and like 2 days later, everything just shut down. So one of the other things that happened with like MMA folk that the amateurs had to turn pro. Some people even did some like backyard fights and everything like that. It got wild
Yeah.
pretty for the last like what 16 months. Got weird.
Yeah. I watched a few like matches, like UFC matches and pro wrestling matches without fans. I
Yeah.
was just like, ooh, that's weird, because you don't hear everything. You hear everything. You hear them talking. You hear them like the hits. You hear that. You hear everything. And it was super interesting to watch, but it was also super weird because
Hmm.
you actually hear everything. I'm like, oh, they're going for it.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. I think it was like one of the ones, and Joe Rogan talks about it, right? Being at like ViStar Arena in Jacksonville, right? And that was the first post-pandemic UFC, and I can't even remember what the actual the headline fight was, but Rogan was talking about like uh, first off, some of the guys listening to like Daniel Cormier, who's a double time UFC champion, a wrestler through and through, who's an Olympic alternate, and actually coaches the team out in Gilroy, California, right? The Gilroy High School Wrestling
Yeah.
Club. But they, like a pure striker would be listening to Daniel Cormier on the commentary, like, oh, block that takedown, how, and listening, and they would etch out a win, but also knockouts. Holy hell! I want to say there was one involving Alonzo Menefield, and he clipped the dude's jaw, and it was like two baseball bats. It was the wildest thing, and you don't obviously a knockout is devastating with fans and everything, but like to hear and
Yeah, you can
feel the
hear it.
brutality.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've been clipped a couple times. I know how it feels.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm dredging up bad memories.
No. I was like 16 going against someone that was like 20. So yeah, I wrestled against adults since I was like 7. Yeah,
Uh,
so when I was like 16, I was sparring and just like, pop, and I was like, I blacked out for like a second, but I like caught myself where I hit the ground. So, but yeah, I remember it happened twice. I know how it feels. Everything
not
goes black. You see stars everywhere. I'm just like, whoa, what the heck just happened?
yeah, not the. And I mean, as somebody who is, I mean, would go on to take an interest in psychology, that's a pretty weird psychological state to be in, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's definitely different than being choked out because I've had that happen too. My first time was in competition, and then I think the second time was during training. I was just being stubborn, so I was like, "No, I'm gonna get out of this." And then next thing I know, my legs are being raised up above my head, and then I knew the feeling at this time, so I just start waking up laughing hysterically because it's like a very like you feel like your whole body is like fuzzy, like it's
Hmm.
tingling all through your whole body, and I knew it was happening, and I just started laughing and scared the hell out of my partner. Like he's like,
Yeah,
"You woke up like the Joker." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry."
you're the one getting choked out, but then he's the one leaving traumatized.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
slap hands or bow, whatever. You're like, I don't want any more of this.
yeah.
Was there a trepidation of him rolling with you after that? Like, was he like, no, I'm not rolling with her? anymore. She wakes up like a
No,
Joker.
no. He's watched me grow up, like, training. He's been there since I was, like, 9. So
Okay.
he's known me for quite a few years.
That's still regardless. That's a pretty freaky endeavor to kind of like you choke somebody out and you're feeling remorse and like, oh man, like whatever, and then she wakes up laughing after, like literally the what is it, the invisible bicycle, right? That's what they
Yeah.
do with your legs to try and get your blood pumping and flowing, getting it back to the brain and everything. But yeah, that not he's the one leaving me traumatized.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, going back, obviously you're pretty much it's a desert in terms of competition, and you're an active competitor. You had just finished school and what have you. I mean, obviously, if not for the crazy year that was 2020, what were on the cards for you?
Um, I don't know. I was in between. I was thinking about going back to the pit for a little bit and go train with Hackleman, but then I went there and had to deal with his attitude, and I was like, I don't like that. I was like, there's kind of like a stinky attitude about me coming back. So I was like, I was like, I'm good. So I was just trying to figure out what I was gonna do. I was probably gonna go train again and maybe do some competitions when stuff started opening up again. But hey, I did pro wrestling and I love it. I was very quick to pick it up. I got my first match with under a year of training. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. Speaking of amazing, we got our friends, the dudes at Ringside Podcast, saying, "How's it going, guys? How's it going?"
yeah.
Joe Panther Jr. and a Metal Geek. They're tremendous. But yeah, so that's kind of fun. So in terms of where you ended up training, what was the flyer for that your dad showed you, and was that the training school that you ended up going to?
Yeah, yeah, it is. So it's a kayfabe college with Ki- Billy Blake or
Billy
Billy?
Blade.
Yeah, Billy Blake. Yeah,
Yeah, the Rock of Love Billy Blade.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. So he's been touring a lot. So my coach right now has been this luchador named Ray Genesis. So I know lucha and American. So, and I've also trained up in this gym in Los Banos. I forgot what the guy's name is, but I've been there a few times. They do lucha and American. So I know how to base for a lot of lucha moves, which is good.
yeah.
Right now, I've been wrestling a lot of female luchadors, so I know the base for everything. So that's really good.
Which is, I mean, different, right? In terms
Yeah,
of
it's so
basing
different.
basing from a folk style, and having a low center of gravity to kind of like almost making yourself bigger than you are to kind of have these people kind of flip and whatever off of you.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot different completely. I'm still working on jumping. That's one of my like fall points because like I'm used to being in a squat position for like a whole practice, and now I'm having to jump.
Mhm.
So that's something I've been working on a lot and got a lot better, which I'm super happy about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm able to go on like the top ropes and like go like boom 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 on top ropes and like spin off and do a lot of cool things. And I know the base for it for like 180 pounds. So that's my partner.
Wow.
He's 180 pounds. So I base for him a lot, which is good. It's amazing because I don't think I'll be wrestling a lot of women 180 pounds.
No, no, probably not. Probably
Yeah,
not.
maybe a few, but I don't think I'll be basing for them much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I could base for 180 pounds, so it makes it a lot easier when I go against a female. It's 130, 150. I can base for them really easily.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was the first day like? And did you know what you were getting into? Because obviously, being a collegiate wrestler, high school wrestler. I mean, just a mixed martial artist. You're used to tough training camps or meets and everything. But
Yeah.
like, how is this different in terms of pro wrestling?
Yeah, so the rolls are about the same. You do your quarter rolls, your forward rolls, your backwards rolls, the long rolls and tiger rolls and all that kind of stuff. So the warm-ups were pretty easy for me besides jumping over the top rope, like, which I can figure out a way to get over them. So that's a good thing. Might be different than the average person, but I know a way to get over it. But so all that was the same, but learning how to throw myself, like taking bumps and all that kind of stuff, was really different. I was like, there's so much easier ways to do this, guys. Like, so I got to teach a little bit of my wrestling stuff to other people as well. You know, my gym is very open to like learning and incorporating what I know also into my wrestling, which I'm very happy about. And so I get to use my throws, the stuff that I know, incorporated in there, but it was a lot different. Like learning how to take bumps, you know, running the ropes, like that's a lot different because I've been in like a boxing ring before and did
Yeah.
boxing matches, but you don't really end up on the ropes very much. Like sometimes you do, but my matches never did because I would break people mentally.
Ooh, wow. There you go. Right on.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. People would hit me and I would still walk forward. So, yeah.
That's one of the nuance that would serve you well, especially in pro wrestling, your new venture. Which talk about running the ropes. That is something that is completely foreign, right? And
Yeah.
if not done right, like I've seen, like there was a gent in that actually was signed to the WWE, a former WWE Cruiserweight champion, in Enzo Amore, and he gets whipped into the ropes, and it dang near decapitates him. Like it's, so even that, which is almost a staple, right? Irish whip into the corner, whatever. If you hit the ropes the wrong way, that could be it.
Yeah. I definitely my first day I end up with bruises like on my back. I think from the ropes, from taking bumps and all that kind of stuff because my body was definitely not used to it. Because I'm used to like a wrestling mat, which is a lot more cushy.
Mhm.
Wrestling mats like absorb the impact. So
Right, which is also, in terms of lucha, right? When you're talking about that, the reason why there are so many roles is because the rings in Mexico and into South America are either boxing rings, which are no give at all, or I
like
don't know why they would do it, but they like pretty much a cement ring. Like they
yeah,
put a tarp on cement, so you don't want to take a flat back bump on it because you're gonna break your back and probably you know if you're lucky, your second match.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, they do a lot of rolls. They roll into like everything instead of taking bumps. I think they take a bump like towards the end of the match,
Hmm.
but a lot of rolls. That's why I can tell the difference is like if you're taking a hip toss, they roll into it instead of like bah, like
Right.
straight down. So
Yeah, that's a lot less trauma on the back.
yeah, yeah. Like some of the midget wrestlers, there's two that's luchadors that have done it for 30 years. 30 years, yeah. Yeah, Octagoncito and Suki.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So they've been doing it. They're still doing it. They've been doing it forever. They're, the typical like midget wrestler has about 10 years because of how impact it takes on their body. And they've been doing it for 30 years because a lot of their stuff is rolls. So you can
Hmm.
definitely tell that the lucha style is a lot easier on people's bodies.
Yeah, 100%. But that's even still, it's still wrestling.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not pushing papers on a desk. There's still some occupational hazards for sure.
yeah. Going on the top ropes, hopefully not slipping. Yeah, doing all the
Yeah.
flips and all that kind of stuff.
Right. No, 100%. Which in terms, you were mentioning your gym being pretty open to you coming in, right, and basically teaching them your style of wrestling with your experience. But did you kind of know that, hey, this is going to be my fail safe? If all else is, I've got my wrestling, I can shoot on people, or did you maybe want to do like a Japanese hard hitting style, or a luchador, more flashy kind of presentation? Like, has your optics of what you wanted to do changed now that you're making the towns?
Yeah, I definitely incorporate a lot of the stuff. I incorporate lucha stuff. I do um the Casadores. I know I do those. So I incorporate like some of the flashy stuff with some more like the brutal stuff. I've been incorporating like my Muay Thai into it, like the kicks and all that kind of stuff. I was working on that like the past couple weeks because I watched one wrestler that I really liked that was like Muay Thai specialist in WWE, and I was like, oh, like I like how she moves, I like how she does that, I know it like that. So trying to incorporate more kicks because like whenever like I'm training and I get lost, I just kick people. It's just like the most natural thing. It's just kick people because I'm like, okay, like I don't know where I'm at right now, just kick them. So then just I think that's kind of a good fail safe for me. It's like doing stuff that I know. If like I get lost, I do what I know, like do something because a lot of my moves that I know, I don't need the other partner. Like I can just throw them, do whatever. So I think that's really good for me personally. Like I use it a lot when I'm doing practice matches and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, boop. And then it kind of like resets, the situation. So we'll be like, oh, like do this or that, or
Yeah, and I think it's pretty fun, right? When you're thinking of like legit wrestlers or whatever, going into pro wrestling, and not to say that pro wrestling isn't legit, because it is. You see guys and girls, in their 40s, kind of hobbling around, and it's not easy on the body, but when you look at the history of wrestling, especially the 50s, 60s, and 70s, a lot of those guys and even some of the gals, you know, when they kind of retired from their collegiate or amateur career, they went into professional wrestling. There were even guys that played in the NFL, like a Wahoo McDaniel, right? And had, the entire crowd every time, in a big football stadium, right? Every time you'd make a tackle, they'd scream out his name, yeah, Wahoo, right? But they were making more money doing wrestling, right?
yeah,
But you kind of think if the UFC and MMA as a whole had, kind of come in maybe about 15 or 20 years before it, how many wrestlers like a Brock Lesnar just goes straight into MMA rather than going into pro wrestling first, because there was more money in pro wrestling than there was in MMA, and that was even only about 15 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. So and now we're even seeing the tippy top guys and gals out of every promotion, right? Whether it be indie promotion or in the AEWs and WWEs of the world, especially in New Japan, it's usually guys that have almost an MMA presentation to their wrestling.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've definitely noticed that they like people who have like MMA backgrounds. Like that's what I've noticed, and I think it's because they want like it to be more realistic, I guess. Like that's what I've noticed. Like watching the old like 80s stuff compared to now, it definitely has changed a lot. It's more like incorporating like MMA, like like I saw triangle chokes. Like I saw triangle chokes in the WWE. I was like, really? I was like, okay, yeah, I could do that. I could do that. I've been working on like flying arm bars and kind of doing that kind of stuff like in the ring too. I just need a right opponent. I need someone a little bit bigger than me. And this Friday, I'm wrestling someone who's 4'8", so that's definitely not it. Yeah, yeah. So different obstacles, but when I get to wrestle someone who's like my size, I'm gonna try to incorporate more like flying arm bars and like more stuff like that. That's more flashy, but like legitimate moves that I know.
Well, whatever you don't do, I mean, whatever you do, I should say, don't pull guard. No guard pullers here, not even in pro wrestling,
Yeah.
Which I mean, you mentioned about kind of going back and you know looking at the '80s style of pro wrestling and what have you. So now that you're training, what are you kind of looking at and maybe taking inspiration now or appreciation of that you probably didn't do before you know took it up a career in the squared circle.
Yeah. I think like they do a lot more like I don't know, they do a lot of different moves, I guess. Like a lot of moves that I don't really see in today's wrestling. I like watching it because you learn from what they did. But I think also at the same time, some of the moves should stay in the past because, the wrestlers, a lot of them can't walk right now. They're all messed up and all that kind of stuff. But I really like the theatrics of everything. You get to see all the like the rock, the like the like he sold an elbow. Like it's super simple, but everyone, even like today is like, oh, the people's elbow. Like my friends, when I told them, they're like, you need to do the people's elbow. Like they're like that. They're like, you have to, or the Hulk Hogan, the build up, I saw that. I was like, oh, that's good, like that, like they're getting hit and they're getting like angry and getting brought up, like that kind of stuff. Like I kind of did that in real life.
Did you? Go ahead and tell us.
Yeah.
Let's.
Yeah, so, like when I was doing MMA and that kind of stuff, like when people hit me, I wouldn't like show that it was hurting me or anything like that. I'd keep, like a serious face. I would still like go forward and like attack the person, even though I'm getting hit, like because it would mess people up, honestly. Like you could see the difference. They look so confident in the beginning of the match, and then they hit me. I'm like, I'm coming after you, even I'm not backing up. I'm going forward, and I'd be like, oh no, like, and start backing up. And I already knew at that point I had the match.
No, 100%, and that's the because obviously in collegiate and folk style wrestling there is a little bit of intimidation that happens. I mean, heck, you look at Jordan Burroughs, right? They're selling out the Madison Square Garden Theater on the ass end of Madison Square Garden with him and Ben Askren wrestling, right? So, but you have to have a little bit of the theatrics to
Mhm.
get that big of a crowd, right?
Yeah.
A couple thousand people paid, right? So, and if you notice, in terms of the older wrestlers, especially if they're still doing it to this day, they can
Yeah.
work a headlock, or a tie up, right? Um, Pretty much for the first 10 minutes of the match, and go on the outside and taunt the crowd if they're a heel, if you're a baby, like this dastardly heel. Or one of my favorite moves of all time is the begging in the corner, and then you either low blow them or pull them into the turnbuckle, right? It's you're kind of like, oh no, I don't want any more, and then never. That's psychological, which doesn't really do too much damage on the body, right?
Yeah.
But you got the same effect of getting the people to pop, so to speak.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel that. I've been working a lot of like psychology. We have like a old time wrestler, Billy's old school, he's
Hmm.
always about selling and doing all that kind of stuff. Like so that's something definitely I work on a lot. It's a lot different than what I'm used to, but I think I've been working on it and I think I've been doing a really good job, like with my last match. Yeah. I impressed a lot of people and people thought
That's
I was hurting, I was injured, so I was like pretty proud of myself. And I played the heel um, for 2 matches, and I got booed at the end. So
well, definitely the desired result. But I mean, do you have a preference of playing the good the good gal or the baby face or versus the heel?
yeah, I do. I like being the baby face personally because I like fans. Like my last one I did, I had a girl literally cry looking at me as a heel. I was just terrified. I was like, I hate this. I hate this feeling, like like I don't mind being a heel with the grown-ups, because I've done that before. It doesn't bother me because I was at a bar crowd,
Right.
one of them, and adults understand that
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
I've seen some adults at wrestling. I don't know. It's still real to me. Damn it!
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, but I feel like at the end of the day, they still know that like I'm not a bad person.
yeah,
Kids don't understand that, which drives me like it's. I understand why they don't, but it's. I don't like it. I don't like the feeling because like she didn't even want to look at me. She was like hiding behind her mom. I was like, I guess I did a really good job, but I feel bad. I don't want to be out here making kids scared of me.
yeah. I mean, but again, one of the occupational hazards. I mean, he'll he'll work. Back in the 60s and the 70s, like you were like, I hate this crowd. This crowd sucks. This town sucks. Your mayor's, whatever, and your mom's the lady of the night, and you say all that stuff, and then you walk out to your car, and the tires would be slashed, or there'd be
Yeah,
sugar in your tank,
yeah,
or like that's heat, like
yeah,
so it's good, but it's like in context, right? Like the
yeah,
little girl. I think the WWE used to play this clip. I think it was like Miz, right? Mike Mizanin, who was on the Real World, done movie stuff and what have you, but he's a former WWE champion, right? And actually double time WWE champion, and he wins the title, kind of like he cashed in the briefcase, and I think he cashed it in on John Cena, and everybody's like, it's just the Miz, whatever, and Miz ends up beating John Cena clean 1, 2, 3, and you see this girl, right? It was a perfect shot. They pan to this girl, and she's just, and they call her angry Miss Girl Face, like it's that's her. Or when the Undertaker's WrestleMania streak had ended, there's a guy, and they've made T-shirts and everything. His eyes are literally about to pop out because he's like so in befuddlement that the Undertaker lost at WrestleMania, and he's just like, and it's those moments that like other sports don't do. I mean, Ali, when you think about it, everybody in regular, life, right? Uh, whether it be athletes, celebrities, what have you. Heck, I mean, the last president, pass or fail, was a former WWE Hall of Famer, right? Regardless of whatever that guy, right? So anybody who adds a pro wrestling presentation to what they're already doing usually ends up transcending the sport. And just in boxing, you've got Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather, three of the biggest boxing stars of all time, transcending generations, and they were all growing up watching wrestling.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like watching wrestling. I like watching it live better, like
Yeah,
because I get to feel everyone around me, and those crazy fans, the ones that dress up like the wrestlers and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, wow, you really, really like that
right.
person a lot. I saw my first crazy fan at like NXT. It was this guy, Velveteen something.
Yes, Velveteen Dream.
Velveteen Dreams. Someone was dressed up just like him, like the
I
hair.
know exactly who you're talking about. It's he actually calls himself on Twitter Velveteen's little brother, because people like he dressed one time, and then he was just like, I guess I'm that, and he would basically go to shows like that, which you can't go hard in the paint with anything in pro wrestling, right? Because I mean, Velveteen is not in the WWE anymore.
No,
Pretty
actually,
shady circumstances of
yeah,
his departure, so that's not fun. And then here you go, dressing up and going to shows, paying money to go to shows, dress up as somebody who might be a sexual offender, allegedly.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, wrestling. Oh, wrestling.
yeah.
Yeah.
He had a really good stage presence, though.
Yeah, 100%.
That's one thing that like I saw. I was like, wow, like he
He
really
got it.
knew how to get a crowd. Like even though it sucks that whatever he did, whatever happened, I heard some stuff from like wrestlers and stuff like that were I trained with and stuff. I don't follow it like they
Right.
do.
Right.
But I was like, like good and for bad, he had a really good stage presence. He really knew how to work a crowd.
Yeah.
Which I was like in awe of.
No, 100%. Which, I mean, the fact that you studied and have your degree in psychology, right? And then the wrestling psychology, right? So has one aided the other in terms of the little nuances of the brain and where you can put people if, given the effort?
Yeah, I think so. Like I kind of like I think I know how to work a crowd a little bit. I still need to work on it, especially if I have to do a heel again. Um, because it's just like I feel weird. I feel awkward because I'm like, I don't know these people, and I need to like talk smack to them. Like, and it's also I think really hard as a female because I'm a female, and I feel like some people don't really want to boo a female. I, it doesn't help that I think I'm pretty and stuff. So they're like, oh, you can't be that bad. Like even when I was putting posters up, like around town for the wrestling show, they're like, you don't wrestle, you don't do that, and I was like, okay, sure I don't, but I'm gonna be there, you're gonna see me. I was like, and then he's like, oh well, are you babyface, are you heel? I'm like, oh, I'm babyface. And he's like, oh okay, yeah, I can see that, no way you can be a heel, like so I think that plays a part too, because if you look you look mean, I think the crowd like gets it more, but I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't look mean. I don't look mean. Most people don't even think I'm like 23, so
Well, I mean, you could do stuff like cheat heat, right?
I
Like,
I do. I do.
yeah,
Like I do that. I do that. It's just really hard, I think, for the crowd, because it was a little bit easier because I was wrestling someone so tiny. Like she was 4'8", so people like I'm like a monster compared to her.
wow, okay,
I'm like 9 inches taller than her, so she's like here. So like that helps a little bit because I look like a giant, even though
yeah,
I'm only 5'5". I'm short. I'm not
yeah,
that tall, but I look like a giant compared to her. So I'm like, God, like
yeah,
throwing her and stuff like that. So, but some of the kids, were bullying me at that show. I was like talking smack to her, but it was really hard for the crowd because they weren't like really interacting with me,
mm,
which helps.
yeah.
Like they're like, you suck, like I'll be like, no, I don't suck. You guys don't know, what good wrestling looks like.
Ooh, good line, good line.
Yeah. So I definitely know, like I know what I'm supposed to be doing. It's just kind of hard for me to like get it going, I guess. Like as a baby face, I can like I interacted with the crowd a lot. I had like kids, running up to me, hugging me, like, oh my God, like how are you able to beat up the boys? And like I want to be like you someday. And like, are you okay? You didn't get hurt? Like I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm a little sore, but I'm living.
I mean, but again, that's some of the fun and intrigue of professional wrestling that I don't believe you can get anywhere else, MMA included, because, when you see somebody's eye hanging out in the dang socket, their eyes hanging out in the dang socket. There's this, unless you're the Undertaker. Undertaker had somebody, Mabel, who's like over 500 pounds, like literally leg drop him and it shattered his orbital,
Yeah.
and that actually ended up prompting like a new incarnation of the Undertaker, because he had to wear a face mask. So they made it like the Phantom of the Opera. So it was like Phantom of the Opera Undertaker. He went from being like a 1800s, Undertaker, right, with Paul Bear, and then he went into this new era because somebody literally smashed his face.
Oh yeah, dude, I've seen a lot of like I watched like a lot of WWE like women's, stuff that happened, like getting kicked in the face and like their tooth fell out and
Yeah.
broke their jaw. And to me, being a like mixed martial artist, I'm like, you had to hit that person really, really, really hard. Like
Hmm.
most time when I'm in doing mixed martial arts, like MMA, UFC, I don't see teeth being knocked out that
Right. Not in like what 25 years, right? Like the early days of the UFC, you saw it, but like not so much anymore. You got
yeah,
mouth guards and all that
yeah,
jazz.
yeah, definitely. And you have to hit someone pretty hard to get a tooth knocked out. I got hit pretty hard, and it didn't get knocked out all the way. It
Yeah.
went back, but
Yeah.
I was able to back. But like I was going straight like forward, and he was moving forward. It was both of our collisions. So I think some of the injuries I think can be prevented with some training, because like I've been able to wrestle and fight kids and not hurt them.
No.
Like I wrestle kids all the time, because I'm a coach, I help out, I box them, and I don't hurt them. They're perfectly fine. Their teeth aren't getting knocked out. They're not getting injuries, It's all about control and being able to control yourself. And if you get zealous, which I think is the issue, like because that's how I
Oh
got
yeah.
knocked out. Like in
Yeah.
sparring, he would just get very zealous and just pop, 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 and I was like, oh, out. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing, no matter how much you train, you might have traps, you might have, what is it, quads of gods and whatever. You can't train your chin.
Yeah.
So once that, nice, just the right amount of force hitting your chin, doesn't matter if it comes out of a kick, you're rolling in jiu-jitsu, somebody's knee comes or whatever. Those are the worst,
Yeah.
right? You're rolling. Maybe you're at an open mat. There's, like people from different gyms and they don't know the etiquette of the gym, right? And then they're rolling, and you'll catch a heel to the chin. Next thing you know, you're like, and there's 2 minutes left on the clock with your days. You're just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Which obviously you're pretty young in your wrestling career, but whether it be pro wrestling or otherwise, I mean, 2020 was a crazy year, kind of leading into this current year of 2021, right? But uh, do you have goals, plans, or whatever for the next year, 2 years or so, or you just kind of playing it as it may?
Winging as it goes. I'm trying to get as many, bookings as I can, get more experience in the ring. I've had 4 matches so far, and we have 2 more this weekend. So, and then we have another one in January. So, I think January 14th, if I believe.
Okay,
Yeah.
where's that at?
In Santa Maria.
Okay,
Yeah.
right on.
I wrestled for EWF for a little bit. I did 2 matches with them. I did a 6-man and I did a 1-on-1.
That's not bad. I mean, the legendary Jesse Hernandez, who was a long time, I guess you would say, enhancement talent for both the WWF as well as the AWA back in the day, and has trained, the likes of Maria. I mean, Melina, right? Came out of his school. There's quite a few notables who have come out of EWF. So that's a pretty cool booking to get so early in your career.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was very exciting. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed the people. I was able to wrestle with some people who were very knowledgeable, um, like Black Metal. I forgot what
Like,
his Spanish name
yeah.
is. Yeah,
What
but
about the Mexi Machos, man?
yes, the Mexi Machos too. Yeah, they were a lot of fun to wrestle, and I was able to have a lot of experience in the ring, which I was glad about. Because a lot of time women wrestlers kind of get put to the side, like especially in tag team matches when there's
Yeah.
males in there, and all of them wanted to make sure that I was incorporated, that I could do as much as I could. So I was very happy with my experience there.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now, but last and very not least, Queen of Hearts. I had a theory when we were kind of talking off air of what that meant, but I guess not schoolboy me, but school me on where the origins of the name of Queen of Hearts came from. I think it's awesome. If you haven't already trademarked it, please do so now. Bunch of T-shirts, bunch of stickers. But how did that come about?
So it was actually my MMA nickname. Like when I would do MMA matches, like pancration matches, when I was like a teen. I got the name from just like choking people out. So I really like the Queen of Hearts, you know, like the fictional Alice in the Wonderland. She always says off with the head, and that's kind of what I would say when I would choke people out. I'd be like off with your head, you know. I really like chokes. I like the rear naked choke and the bow and arrow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Bow and arrow was one of my favorite ones to do. So I'm trying to incorporate that kind of stuff into my pro wrestling as well. Just figuring it out. But so I just kind of incorporated that back into this. I really like the character. I really like, you know, the name, something I always, you know, got. And I think it fits me really well, honestly. Like, so it's Queen of Hearts, Scarlet Rose. So came up with, yeah, the full name. I really enjoy it. I really like it. My finishing move is a knee to the head. So
What do you call the? Because it can't just be a knee to the head.
it's the move itself is called the ripcord knee. So like you grab, you spin, and
Yeah.
you do the bicycle knee. I haven't created a name for it yet.
Oh,
Yes, I
okay.
know.
Yeah. I'm I'm gonna have some things percolating in my brain, and I'm gonna send it to you. It's
Yeah.
yeah, because I've already got yeah. All right, right on. Yeah, 100%. Now, obviously, there have been a lot of people, both professional and personally, that have helped you along this, this road. So take as long as you need. Let's get some shout outs out of the way.
Okay. So I really appreciate my coach Billy Blade and Ray Genesis that he's been there every single week, you know, helping me out in the ring, outside the ring, you know, like learning the psychology because that was kind of one of the hardest points, you know, I had was learning the psychology of in the ring. So they like, you know, broke everything down to me, helped me out. Um, Liam Price, which is one of the people I wrestle with, you know, I'm very appreciative of them and my parents as well, giving the support that I need. Like throughout the years, you know, they're always there. They've always been there, you know, like since I was 5 years old, going to every tournament, every match. You know, I think my dad missed maybe one when I was a kid because he had to work, but you know, he would take time off. He would always be there. He'd travel with me, you know, and especially now they try to hit every single one as possible, you know, but I travel, you know, to LA and that kind of stuff, so it's a little bit harder, and sometimes it's when my dad works. But they're going to be there. They try to be there as much as possible. You know, they always take care of me, make sure I have the right gear, you know, protect myself. So,
That's a good foundation. No matter what endeavor you end up being, a good foundation is it's I guess where the heart is. Pardon the pun. So it's cool that the Queen of Hearts, Scarlet Rose, has a nice foundation in people that are so near and dear to her heart in your parents. That's so awesome.
yes.
And last but not least, where can they find you on social media?
On Instagram and Facebook at the Queen of Hearts. And it's two S's, so
Double S.
double S.
Yes, get it right or pay the price. Well, again, this has been an honor and a privilege, and I can't wait to see where you blossom in terms of your career. You've already done so cool, and I mean, it's funny. 4 matches in, you're almost going to double that just this weekend.
Yeah.
So I think it's absolutely cool. So again, thank you so much for there you go. The time is up. But obviously, thank you guys for watching us here at the According to Woods podcast. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I mean, Queen, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
I don't think so yet.
You're going to, though.
Yes, I'm going to. Everyone should. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So again, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. If you don't believe me, you don't believe Scarlet Rose, and I don't know why you wouldn't. Well, here's another pro wrestler, Zeta Zhang, to help convince you.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe to